helping white South Afrikaners resettle here in the United States. Because if you haven't heard, and you haven't because of the obvious reasons, really, the shade of these people's skin, white South Afrikaners have been getting and their farms taken away from them simply for being, you guessed it, the shade of white. So these are real asylum seekers who are being let into the United States, and they're getting a fast track to American citizenship, and I hope he lets in thousands more. And what's interesting is, when they arrived here yesterday, they arrived in Virginia. Let's take a look at them. Yeah, they're holding the American flag, opposed to what we're used to seeing when caravans are storming our southern border. We're seeing the individuals carry the flags and waving the flags of the country they're fleeing, opposed to the American flag. So at least these white South Afrikaners are embracing America and the flag. So yes, these white South Afrikaners, like I said, have been under distress for years now. There was a documentary made in 2018 by independent journalist Lauren Southern called Farmlands, which goes into depth about what has been happening to white South Afrikaners and their farms. Watch the documentary and you'll see what I'm talking about. But of course, lefties complaining as usual about this. CNN, they're complaining about it. It's something that when white people are brought into the United States, they complain about it. See, the reverse racism is real, and we can see it. It's plain as day. Okay, 59 white South Afrikaners are brought into the United States, and the left has a meltdown because they're white. When Joe Biden let in over 20 million predominantly highly melanated individuals, but nothing was said. Nothing at all. 59 whites are brought in, and it's a travesty. We're over the racism. White people are. We're over it. And I could see it here on TikTok. They're over it with the no more white guilt videos. People are tired. White people are tired of being called racist just for being white. The blame for everything. They got to walk on eggshells. They can't talk. They're done with it. White people are finished. There's no more white guilt. I have fatigue. Other people have fatigue. But you know what I have real fatigue of? White liberal fatigue. Because these are well-to-do white liberals that will put down other whites that are blue-collar, hard-working whites to make themselves look good because they have this white savior complex they got to shed onto the world so everybody can see how great they are. We're over it.
I did my research and I found out how racist this new administration truly is. This is some of the most racist shit I've ever heard of. In 1913, South Africa had white supremacists running the country, and they created apartheid, which created segregation and discrimination laws against black South Africans. It was whites only South African businesses, whites only South African movie theaters, whites only South African swimming pools. South Africa was on that racist shit just like America treated black folks. So in 1913, white South Africans took over South Africa with force. White South Africans stole land owned by black South Africans. Fast forward to 2025. Three of Trump's biggest supporters are three of the most richest men on the planet. Elon Musk, Peter Thiel, and David Sachs are three billionaires that fully support Trump. Elon Musk, Peter Thiel, and David Sachs are all white South Africans who were born in South Africa, white supremacy, and apartheid. Elon Musk is a white South African white supremacist. South Africa now has a black president. This South African president wants equality in South Africa. He wants the racism to stop, and he wants everyone to be treated equally. Trump and Elon Musk heard about this black South African president wanting equality. Trump immediately stopped all funding to South Africa. There are only 7% of white people in South Africa. But those white people own 70% of the land in South Africa because they stole most of that land from black South Africans. The new black South African president put a new law in place. to right the wrongs that were done to black South Africans that had land stolen from them. Just like when European settlers stole America from the natives. Because the South African president wants to give back land that white South Africans stole from black South Africans, that's why Trump and his administration are saying white South Africans are being persecuted and done wrong. But white South Africans are not under persecution.
I mean, the facts are there is no systematic prosecution of white Afrikaner farmers. For the Trump administration to take the view that there's somehow systematic persecution, it's actually problematic and troublesome and damning on the way the Trump administration is receiving its information.
How are they being prosecuted when they the ones who stole the land from black South Africans? Black South Africans are the ones who originally owned that land. What's so wrong with doing right and giving black South Africans their land back? But see, this is the thing. South Africa is not even seizing land like Donald Trump is saying they are. It's a lawful process that's handled in the courts of South Africa. If someone stole land...
We have some news right now. The Trump administration has chartered a plane to go and resettle a number of white South African residents back to the United States, making an exception for them, despite the fact that Donald Trump suspended refugee admissions into the United States earlier this year. It appears as though there is an exception if you are white and from South Africa to be able to become a refugee in the United States of America, as the State Department has paid and chartered a private plane to bring them into the United States. On January 20th, Donald Trump did sign an executive order saying that the United States, quote, lacks the ability to absorb large number of immigrants and in particular refugees into communities in a manner that does not compromise the availability of resources for Americans. But there was a big public dispute between the South African president and Donald Trump concerning land seizure laws. And well, now the Trump administration has granted an exception for these white South African residents to now become assimilated and become refugees in America.
The Trump administration is welcoming 49 white South Africans to the United States. Now, these white South Africans will be granted refugee status and a potential pathway to citizenship. Now, keep in mind that this is all taking place within the United States under a Trump administration that has completely dismantled this country's asylum-seeking process. Now, keep in mind that just a couple of days ago, last week, the Trump administration asked the Supreme Court to rescind the legal status of 500,000 immigrants. Now, where are these immigrants from? Who are they? Venezuelans, Haitians, Nicaraguans, and Cubans. So mostly black and brown people. And so as he's opening the door to white South Africans, claiming that many of these white South Africans are being persecuted and racially discriminated against, he's closing the door to hundreds and thousands of black and brown immigrants. When Donald Trump said a couple of months ago, closing his campaign by saying that migrants poison the blood of this country, he of course is specifically talking about black and brown migrants. And I'll let you draw your own conclusions here. This may be deeper. Donald Trump is someone that has often been obsessed with genetics. The New York Times has reported on this. By 1988, Donald Trump was telling Oprah Winfrey that he believed that only great genes could lead to great fortunes. By 2007, he was telling Larry King about the racehorse theory, which is this belief that there are certain genes that are superior to others. He's brought up this racehorse theory many, many times before. A couple years later, after 2007, Donald Trump called himself a gene believer, whatever that means. In 2000, as Donald Trump was still campaigning, he told a large crowd of mostly white people in Minnesota, he looked at them and said, "You have great genes." And he once again brought up this idea of the racehorse theory. And so again, it's important to understand who they're opening the doors to and how they're closing the doors to certain people. And it always is a lot deeper than we believe it is.
We are now open to accepting refugees again. If they come from South Africa and they're white. Then the plaque on the Statue of Liberty rings true again. The Trump administration, which has a number of high-profile people with connections to South Africa, Elon Musk being only one of them, are suddenly very, very concerned about the racial discrimination being practiced in South Africa.
This is the same administration that's basically shut down all refugee resettlement in this country.
You don't want any Somalian refugees that are fleeing the crisis in Somalia, or Palestinian refugees fleeing who are dying, or even Ukrainian refugees. We're ready to send them back.
Or how about this?
The ones
How about
we
the
like.
Afghan refugees
Oh, yeah.
helped U.S. military personnel who got abandoned by us when we left that country so quickly and have been trying to make their way to the United States because they're under threat of persecution and death in Afghanistan, and we won't accept them. But we are welcoming white quote unquote refugees from South Africa, most of whom are very wealthy landowners.
Maybe feeling a little uncomfortable because of some recent laws that have been passed that could allow for the taking some property potentially and redistributing it to balance out the fact that the very small white minority owns almost all farmland in South Africa, and the very large black majority owns almost no farmland in South Africa. They haven't actually seized any land, but there is a law where there could be some redistribution of land if it's deemed necessary.
We have paid for charter flights to bring them to the United States. When there are people of color who are legitimate refugees seeking asylum from real persecution, we're not chartering planes for them, rolling out the red carpet.
And 80% of the people that seek asylum at the southern border are Christians.
Yes.
That are seeking asylum because they feel their lives are in danger. We have a group that's trying to root out anti-Christian bias, but not if it happens in another country and results in someone wanting our help.
Hi guys, welcome to Ijoma TV. Thanks for tuning into my channel. Thanks to my returning subscribers. Thanks to the new ones. If you are new here, don't forget to subscribe and turn your notification bell so each time we upload, you will be the first to receive a notification. So as you have watched up to this moment, what do you think about this video? What do you think what they are doing in America, about South Africa? Because of the skin colors, the skin complexion, now that the white South Africa are the one being granted asylum, being granted permit to stay in America. Meanwhile, the black South African are not. You can see that this color have really dealt with us. Yeah, so because if you ask me, these people are the same. They are the same South Africa. But why only the white one have the permit to remain in America? That is the question there. So from this video, you will understand the reason why they allow only the whites to stay there. So if you're black, you go back. Thank you. For what do you think? Please feel free to share your opinion under the comment section. Life is not easy out there. Honestly speaking, people are seeing a lot. People, in fact, racism everywhere. May God Almighty help our African leaders so they can put African continent in order. For people to stay back home in their place. Nothing like your home. Yeah, nothing like your home. If you have traveled out there, you will know that difference is there. Racism everywhere. Honestly speaking, it's not only in America. So I will leave you guys to share your opinion. Share this video. I will see my next video.